Okay, let me just get everything set up. I'm pretty sure it should be already good from last week. I'll just assume it's good. Okay, then let's just get started. Okay, this time we're going through BLT Week 3 recap, Week 4 analysis, or Week 3 recap and analysis, Week 4 predictions and highlights. So in Week 3, like I said before, Swamperts versus Alakazams was going to be a huge matchup. It really mattered a lot for the Alakazams, and it seems like they weren't able to turn up. Even though I had them favored in some of these matches, they weren't able to really capitalize. Frisso beat Twixtree in a pretty solid game, and Ham beat UK, which were the close matchups. Tectonic Destroyer beat TMM, which I favored TMM, but it was a very solid win by Tectonic Destroyer. Mac 3 very cleanly won his match in RU. And then Ziri lost in NU, and he's continued a pretty bad streak in BLT so far. And it seems like the Alakazams will really have a rough time turning it around, but if they do want to turn it around, then Ziri has to be at the forefront of that. Jaren also being a very big liability to the Alakazams, being someone that they put, they expected to do well, and he's gone 0-3 as well. Rafua 11 also losing his match, not a huge surprise though, TTT being one of the few undefeated players left in the bracket. And Thunderbirds managed to beat Maki's Fox as well. In our matchup versus the Bolts, we won 5-3 as well. Roginald lost his game to like a relatively close game. It was like a pretty long game, but he kind of messed up on he could have waited for the Corviknight to get to full HP before thundering, but he risked going for a few thunders. He ran out of PP and then ended up losing the game off that. Attribute beat Halamon pretty. It was like a close game, but it really should have been Halamon's win, but he ended up choking away the win, and Attribute picked up the win after playing like a relatively clean endgame. Kather beat Snowfall. Wasn't it was a competitive game, but not too much to say about that. Fellyburn beat PCD in a relatively bad matchup, actually. But Fellyburn cleaned that one up. Trade beat Prince of All Tacos. Looks like Pote's team wasn't that good this week. He kind of crumbled to a few different things, but Trade managed to pick up that win, which is. And then I lost to Cav. Got kind of lucked, to be honest, but yeah, I mean, not much you can do about it. It happens. And then Cheese beat Velvet Blood, very solid. And then Havens over Richard Pepper was also very solid. I'll get back to the Blimex Petrie Clouds matchup because I want to talk a little bit about the drama that happened later on in BLT. And then Ewin beat Pradhan. Pretty clean game. GXC continued his good streak, and Arsenine. Arsenine again brought a really weird team, but he managed to pick up that win as well. Confide got a big win on the boards for himself, beating Skipcan. And yeah, let's see. Excelsior beat Jack in My Box. Z-Strats had a very solid win against Shadow Monster, albeit brought a little bit of a weird team. And then Floss had a solid win over Dugza. I don't remember too much about these top two games, the Cheese and Tempering games, but Remo lost, beat Gun J. SMB was very, very solid in RU and had a very convincing win. GW picked up another win for himself in NU as well. Solar Flare RO beating Mishimoto was like a big surprise, I think. For a lot of people, including myself, I thought Mishimoto would have done a lot better so far, but he losing to Solo for RO is actually like a huge thing. And I think a lot of that has to do with his team choice, which wasn't very solid. He had no real win cons. His two main win cons really got shut down by the same thing, and they got he actually did play against that specific thing. He made some misplays, didn't play too well either, and some of the things that happened throughout the game. So I don't know if it's because he doesn't care that much about BLT or what, but his team did pick up the slack for him this week, so it didn't matter too much, other than his individual record, which I don't think that many people care for. Like, it's just a BLT individual record. Like, some people will say like, okay, I mean, we'll use it to really say that they've been doing well, but like, honestly, it doesn't matter too much in the grand scale of things. Like, it's more about team success, in my opinion. But maybe I'm just saying that as a manager, I mean, some people definitely care about the individual part of BLT as well, but and then Maroon beat Gorex. So the big thing that happened this week, really, that I wanted to talk about was the Blimax versus Petri Clouds kind of hassle that happened. Honestly, this is the kind of behavior I don't want to see in any tournament, really, but I especially don't want to see in BLT, just because I feel like this kind of thing has happened in the past already. It's basically people feel like they're way better than they are, whatever. They get very overconfident. They just talk down to other people. They get very or actually, let me give some context for some of the people who don't know really what happened. So basically, Blimax beat Dali, or I guess Peachy Clouds is what a lot of people will know him as. So what happened was throughout the game, Peachy Clouds got relatively unlucky. He got hacks in a lot of places, and I think that without some of that hacks, Peachy Clouds definitely could have won. And it was like, it wasn't like a perfectly played game on either side, honestly. Like, I think a lot of both players made a lot of mistakes. But at the end, without really any prompt, like, Peachy said like after getting hacked a few times, like getting paired and stuff, whatever, is like normal stuff. But Blimax just says you got completely outplayed with no prompt at all, and then Peachy Clouds pops off and says some stuff back. Honestly, I put a lot of the blame here on Blimax. Like, Peachy Clouds probably wouldn't have said anything. He would have just been like, okay, like, yeah, I got hacks, this sucks, but whatever. He'll keep it to himself. He'll probably complain in his team chat, but he won't complain in public. Like, he's like a classy person. Like, he understands that it's not good for your public image just to like pop off for no real reason. But then Blimax goes and tries to provoke him for, again, no real reason. And, he goes into a whole thing. He makes the stupid thing on his win post. Like, just keep this stuff completely out of BLT. There is no place in BLT for bad sportsmanship. Like, this kind of stuff, like, I just don't think there's any place for it, like, period, in any place whatsoever. But especially in BLT, just don't do this kind of thing. It just, like, okay, whatever. Nobody cares if you went like undefeated in World Cup of Pokemon. Nobody cares. Like, you don't say stuff like, "Oh, you got completely outplayed after you beat someone." Just be classy. Just say GG. Whatever. You can gloat to it to like your friends. You can gloat to it to your team or whatever, but not to like the other person, and especially not saying something that isn't even fucking true. Like, he didn't even play that well. Like, to be honest, like, he didn't play that well. He threw the win. He had like a very guaranteed win, and he threw it on multiple occasions, and then he got bailed by luck, and that's just like frankly what happened. But it doesn't like, but like, even if you did outplay him completely and whatever, it's still not like right to say that kind of stuff. Like, you just don't have any grounds to say this kind of stuff. And this isn't the first time I've seen it, obviously, but like, these types of toxic behavior is something that I've talked about before in the past, especially when talking about drafting players. This kind of toxic behavior is just like a complete turnoff. I think it's terrible for like any sort of community to have, and I just don't condone it whatsoever. Obviously, I don't think Peachy Clouds and Ewin, who later responded, and Star Real, these guys who responded to Blimax, I don't really condone that type of behavior either, but I think it's more understandable. I put a lot of the blame there on Blimax. I don't want people to say that, like, I don't want people to misconstrue what I'm saying and think it's okay to, bash on this guy for doing this stuff. Like, I don't condone either side of it. I don't think it's the best type of behavior in response either. But I do want to say that it's just like most of the blame here is to be said, or most of the blame is to be given to Blimax for like basically provoking these guys for no real reason. And I just don't want to see it in the future whatsoever. So, you know, I'll just put it that way. I'll say that people, if you do come across this in the future, just like just ignore these kinds of people. Like, they're just clowns basically. But yeah, that's about it. For what the consequences of this week mean, though, it really puts a lot of pressure now on the Alakazams. Now they're 0-3. They have no ties, no wins. So they really need to pick up the pace if they want to like climb back into playoffs here. So I'll go ahead and click on the spreadsheet so you guys can see what the standings are looking like right now. It's very clear that the Snorlaxes and the Swamperts are the two best teams in the league. We've been very consistent at the top for the last few weeks, and I think that it's shown that we're the best teams in the league right now, and we're going to be playing against each other in this coming week. So it'll really decide maybe, or so far the Swamperts have had a better start, so it'll be on us to really be able to beat them, but we'll see. To be honest, though, it doesn't seem completely out of reach for the Alakazams to reach the playoffs because this middle of the pack is so close. With the 3 points, 3 points, 3 points, 2 points, 2 points. Because of that, if the Alakazams can put together a few more good weeks at the end, they could easily climb back up into the playoff picture. With really the third and fourth seeds being up for grabs right now. I do think that it's very, very, very hard. As someone who's been part of a losing environment before, like in these team situations, it becomes so much harder to turn it around from 0-3. Like, even if your final record, or like if your team is like, and even if the Alakazams end up with like a 4-3 record, it's way harder to reach 4-3 from being 0. Okay, obviously it's way harder to reach 4-3 from being 0-3, but I'm saying like each win seems much harder. You start to doubt everything you do. Like, everything that like within the team environment becomes way more toxic. Like, it just becomes a much more difficult time. And I know because I've been part of those situations before. So I think like being able to rally back would be really, really big for the Alakazams, and they really need to win this week. I mean, they really needed to win last week, to be honest, but like if they can pick up a win this week, it'll be more like realistic for them to make it back in the playoffs. Even without that, though, all the teams in the middle of the pack, so with the Snobs picking up a big win this week, Snobs are really going to be challenging for that playoff spot, which people in the beginning of the season weren't really sure about them, but I think they definitely could be a good team as long as they show up. Last time, even their best players, being I think Plaz and Mishimoto, didn't even get them part of these 5 wins. So they definitely have the potential to be like challenging for one of those playoff seeds. So that said, having seen this, we will be moving on to the this week, the week 4 predictions. So first off, once again, Swamperts versus Snorlaxes. This will be kind of the decider of who is going to be the best team in the league, at least for the regular season. And it'll be like a huge matchup because we're currently both at the top of the standings. Even if the Swamperts lose, they're still going to be the second place team. I think even if we lose, unless it's by big, we'll still be the second place team. So it will definitely come down to whoever plays better for this series. Friso versus Reginald and UK versus Attribute will definitely be favoring them. I think both of their OU players have been very good so far. And if you see on the spreadsheet, although they have lost, or I should say UK has lost one game, it was only to Ham, who is also close to the top of the sheet. And I think undoubtedly Ham is a good player, and both UK and Friso have put together really good seasons so far, and they've definitely been worth their price tag. I think that it's definitely going to be a really tough for us to beat them in OU. However, in the other tiers, Kather definitely has put together a really good season so far, and he is sitting here at wait, is he 1-1? I thought he was 2-0. Oh no, he is 1-1. Never mind. So I think K3 is definitely a little bit better, but obviously that's a little bit biased for me. Fellyburn should be definitely favored, sitting at the top of the standings as well, at 3-0. Principal Tacos versus Bad Player will definitely be a good matchup. Both have been, have had good matches and bad matches. I'll be playing I'm Just Gray, kind of same boat. We've both, or I think I've been doing pretty well, but I've only played 2 games, and the game versus McCav was like, it's a little hard to judge exactly what would have happened without the hacks. Cheese versus TTT will be a huge match. I think this is definitely going to be one of my highlights to watch out for, because they're both undefeated. I believe this is the only matchup with 2 undefeated players. I want to say that's true, but I'm not 100% sure. Let's see. Oh, actually, no. I think. Okay, actually, Bandrizzle versus Havens is also going to be 2 undefeated players, so that's actually pretty hype. Both the doubles and mono matches are 2 to look out for, as Bandrizzle is also undefeated, Havens undefeated, Cheese and TTT both undefeated. So we'll see how everything goes. I think we can definitely win the series, but we can definitely also lose the series. And it'll really be on how we perform throughout the series. So let's move on to the Alakazams and Rufflets. And the Rufflets really decided to put in a lot of their subs this week. So the Alakazams really need to capitalize on this if they want to win. Or make playoffs, I should say. So Ham is definitely favored in OU. Twixtree also favored in OU. I think Fejiro or S Mega versus Weeping Devil will be really close. I'll favor Fejiro though. Arsenine versus Tectonic Destroyer also going to be pretty close. I'll favor Arsenine though, although he hasn't had the best season so far. Yoshi versus Ziri. I think Ziri is definitely favored. However, Ziri has not been performing to like the expectation that we would expect from him. But if he can return to that prior level, then Ziri should be favored here in NEU. Tendi's come to Papa. I actually have no idea. Like, I have never seen him play before. And Excelsior, who did pick up a win last week, should be favored. And then Shadow Monster should definitely be favored in doubles. And Floss versus Mucky's Fox, I think Floss is definitely favored in mono. I think it'll come down a lot to this UU, RU, and LC games, because I think some of these players have the potential to be better, and Ziri as well, but have the potential to play better, have the potential to get good teams, but it'll really depend on how much support they're able to get, how much they care anymore, because sitting at 0-3, once again, I'm going to talk about it over and over again, but it's about the motivation. It's about the, prep and stuff coming into these matches, because a lot of them have been with BLT, with the DLC coming, or DLC having come and the meta completely changing in a lot of these tiers. It does completely change how you have to think about what to bring and like what kind of teams are good. So I think the Alakazams definitely can win this week, but it'll be really, really important if they lose this week, then they are just, I think, out of the playoff hunt basically. They're like not mathematically out, but like they're going to basically be out. So it'll be really important for them to pick up the win, and I personally want to see them win because I've talked about it before, but obviously the Alakazams are some of my close friends, and if they don't do well, it's worse for the entire scene of BLT, in my opinion. Up next is the Gudras and the Bolts. More roster shifts around for both of these teams, starting with Star Rail versus Trade. Trade has been playing very well in some of the lower tiers, but Star Rail has also been having a pretty good season so far. And as someone who has played, or sorry, I should say, as seeing that Star Rail is an OU main, I think that I'll favor Star Rail slightly here. Poison Adhesive should be favored here versus Halaman. I haven't been impressed at all by Halaman's performance so far. Gun J versus APW 001. I'm not too sure what to think of this, to be honest, but I think Gun J is probably going to be slightly favored here. SMB should be easily favored here versus PCD. PCD is a solid player, but I think SMB is just very good, very good. I haven't been impressed that much by Toasted Bun's play so far, but Not Mian has been okay. I would say I'm slightly favored towards Not Mian. I think Mikav is a heavy favorite here in LC, and actually this is another undefeated matchup technically because Parivar got activity / dead gamed in the last week. X Skelly versus Lightning could be interesting. I don't really know what X Skelly's experience in doubles is, but I don't really see it, either player being like amazing at doubles, so it could be kind of up in the air. And then Sice versus Richard Pepper, I would favor Sice XV slightly. I just haven't been impressed very much by Richard Pepper's performance. Kind of what I've been what would be expected of him, but not too good. Cheese 555 versus Ewin, both have been playing pretty well in their past few games, or like throughout BLT. I'll slightly favor Ewin here, and I'll slightly favor Abyssal Ruins over Tempering as well, even though Tempering has been playing pretty well and picking up the wins, importantly. GXE versus Ramo Lost, heavily favoring GXE. I've been very impressed with his UU overall throughout everything that I've seen him play recently. And I think he's just one of the best UU players. I mean, just the best in BLT completely, or overall, but like even just outside of BLT, I'd say GXE is, I can't talk. GXE is just one of the better UU players overall. PokeArt versus Sensei Axu, I'll favor Sensei Axu. And then GW has beat Confide in a pretty close game earlier today. And then Surfy Teen and Skiriku, or I still can't pronounce this guy's name, but I'll favor the Hatterines player here. He played pretty well. I've heard a lot of good things about him, and he's been who did he play last week? He didn't play last week, did he? He played in week 2, if I remember correctly. Let's see. Let me just... Where is he? Yeah, he beat Jaren last week. And he played pretty well in that game, if I remember correctly. And then Mishi versus Z-Strats. I'll favor Z-Strats here, even though preseason I said that Mishi would be the best out of the non-SMB players. I haven't been too impressed with Mishimoto's performance so far, and I think Z-Strats has been above my expectation, and I'll favor him slightly here. And then Maroon versus Peachy Clouds. I think Peachy Clouds is a slightly better player, so I'll go with Peachy Clouds here. Yeah, that's about it for this week. Is there anything else I'm missing? So I think like hopefully after this week we may depends on how MJ is feeling, we may get him on the show for next week to do kind of a mid-season recap kind of deal, but we'll see how things go. Maybe he's not feeling it if his team isn't winning, but we'll see how stuff goes after next week. That's about it for this episode. So thank you guys for watching. Leave a follow if you're watching on Twitch, and leave a like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. And I'll see you guys next week for another episode of recap and analysis.